studio with me today is Father James Zimmer. He is a longtime priest of the diocese, and he has come in again today. He was here with us somewhat recently, and we wanted to bring him in again to tell us about how he got his call to the priesthood, because he's been a priest for a long time, and I really want to know this. He told me before we started that he's still getting called, so I want to know how this is happening. So welcome, Father Zimmer.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back in. I appreciate it. So we're going to get some of your story. We probably won't have time to get it all in, but we'll get some of it at least. Mm-hmm. So you first tell us about your family, where you grew up, all of that kind of good stuff.
I was born we lived 2 blocks west of Cathedral in Sioux Falls when I was born. Mm-hmm. And I say that really quickly, especially when I'm around people who kind of glory in the North End stories, that I'm a North Ender too. Then we moved to Humboldt, which is my dad grew up in the Humboldt area, mm-hmm. and we moved to the farm that he and my mother bought, and they said they wanted to raise their family in the country.
Sure.
And so my growing up years, most of my memories are from Humboldt.
Sure. And how many brothers and sisters?
4 sisters.
Okay.
And no brothers.
Wow, just you.
So just me.
Oh, boy. Yes. Did they treat you pretty good, those sisters?
Yes, they did. I didn't always think so, but they did. I'm not sure I always treated them so well.
Were you the oldest, youngest?
I was 4th out of 5.
4th, okay. Right. All right. So, yeah, you had a lot of sisters to lead the way. Your parents probably didn't pay much attention to what you were doing in high school and stuff, did they?
Well, they did.
Or did they have to? All right. So, and where did you go to school? In Humboldt, or was that? Okay.
And at that time, St. Anne's grade school in Humboldt. And the sisters, presentation sisters, of course, were a big part of my early life.
I didn't know they were in that area then. Okay.
They were. And, I believe St. Anne's school closed, I think, my senior year of high school.
Okay. And then did you go to college?
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to say the priest at Humboldt, St. mm-hmm. Anne's Parish, was Father Thomas Coyne.
Okay.
And he was a wonderful priest, a great influence on my life, even more than I realized. I still think of him quite a bit. He was in Humboldt for, I believe, over 40 years.
Oh, my goodness.
He came there 3 years before I was born. Mm-hmm. And when he left, I was a priest already. I'd been a priest 6 years when he left. I got to.
That's unusual, isn't it, for priests to be?
I emceed the program that they had for farewell for him.
Oh, wow.
I got to be the MC.
That had to be a little, weird and really cool for him.
Yes, and for me both. Both of us, yes.
Where did you go to college?
Well, I went to St. Mary's University, that's university now, in Winona, Minnesota.
Okay.
The college seminary, Immaculate Heart of Mary.
So you went straight to seminary. You didn't.
I did.
Did you have a plan? Did you see yourself as something else besides a priest at any point?
For sure. A farmer. I love the country mm-hmm. and farming, anything that's outdoors. I was interested. I remember thinking of forestry.
Oh.
And
you might have had to move for that.
And I was pretty good at there's more I can tell. Now I'm living back at the farm mm-hmm. where I grew up on that place, and one of the things I've been working on for years, it's 20 years or so, has to do with forestry. I've been replacing trees that the shelter belts,
right?
Taking out trees that are old and diseased or dead, and mm-hmm. planting new ones and so on.
Very nice. So you get to have that interest and in your later years be able to experience that, which is nice.
There's something about the outdoors.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, so will you tell us how you got your call to the priesthood? Because I have a feeling you didn't just up one day and decide, I'm going to go to seminary.
Well, yes, and it's there's lots of stories. Mm-hmm. A story that came to me when you first asked that, getting ready for
Right.
this program, was has to do with a badger hole in the pasture.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I was just starting as an altar boy,
Okay.
and we had benediction on a Friday night, and it was my first time ever being an altar boy.
Mm-hmm.
And so Father Coyne liked to have as many boys as possible there, so we had quite a few boys.
Right.
And I didn't do anything. All I had to do was be there
Sure.
with the outfit on, and but it was benediction. It was not mass. We may have had the stations. No, I think
Don't do benediction very often anymore, do we?
yeah, it was benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, probably the Rosary.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the incense being really attracted to that. Somehow, anyway, that was the first time I was a server, and I, of course, knew this was a sacred thing, a holy thing that took place. And the next day, my sisters and I went out in the pasture, and we saw this badger hole. And we went up and were looking at the badger hole. And somehow it came to me that what I was part of last night, I could almost smell the incense, I think. What I was part of last night has everything to do with this badger hole and with this pasture and with my sisters and I being here, that it's not separate, that this has to do with life.
Okay.
And so that life is a lot more than meets the eye.
Okay.
And that it was important to try to live life that way, which I would say is that's really why Christ came, was to save us from living any other way.
Sure.
And restore us to living with that sense of wonder, sense that God is in everything. God is all in all. And that moment was a significant moment for me. I wouldn't say necessarily about being a priest,
Right.
but about being human.
That's really interesting that had such a big impact on you.
It did.
Yeah. God was really working on you then.
Yes. And the things like that I later look back on and say, God was really, there was a call going on. I'd want to stress, I think, that the call was to be human.
Okay.
And I kind of want to say that everyone's vocation is to be human, so that we tend to take for granted I'm a human being. So we kind of say, well, here I am, I'm a person, human being of the human race, and now what do I do with myself?
Right.
But if actually that being human is not to be taken for granted, and that if I can become more human, actually, more really what a human is meant to be, which is not a cookie cutter, it's unique for each one of us.
Right.
So if I can become myself really in my humanity.
And it's the thing that God called you to that you're supposed to become.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So did you feel at some point as you grew up, you're trying to understand what it means to be a human, did you feel at any point there that, okay, yes, I'm going to go be a priest? Or was it just...
Yeah, well, I don't know that I would have been saying to myself, I'm trying to be human. I'm saying that now, looking back.
Yes.
But seeing it, though, yes.
Yeah.
And, well, I've had times where I thought it would be neat to be a priest. The sisters would say that often. You boys should think of being a priest. You girls should think of being a sister. One... a man from Humboldt became a priest of Blue Cloud Abbey, Father Columban Malloy.
Okay.
And I don't think he was from Humboldt all his growing up years, but he had connections and became a Benedictine. He had his first Mass there when I was in grade school.
Okay.
And so I remember that first Mass and being just intrigued and thinking, what must this be like for him? and he's never done this before. Now here he is. And so it was very interesting. And the next day, I think, in school, sisters asked, would any of you boys be interested in being a priest? Some of the guys raised their hand, and I did not. I remember thinking, no, I do not
I have
want
other
that.
plans.
Yeah, I would not want to be a priest. Very clearly, that was in my mind. And so
something changed along the way.
and it's been for me, in a sense, up and down like that.
Really?
All along the way.
Wow.
Oh, I would say, yes.
That's interesting to hear that. I bet you're not the only priest who's felt that way.
Oh, I don't think I am.
And it's probably a relief for other priests to hear that from somebody.
Yes.
To say, "Oh, I'm not the only one."
Right.
So, because it's not an easy vocation.
Well, as no vocation is, being human isn't necessarily
very
easy,
true.
but also beautiful and meaningful,
Right.
even in its trials and sufferings. We talked about that on the program about
the hospital. Yep.
Even in the sufferings. But so.
And we all go through those, whether your vocation is to marriage or to priesthood or religious life. There's going to be suffering no matter what.
Right.
So,
And times when you're going to say, is this really what I am meant for? Or is this really what I want? And then the beauty of discovering, oh yeah, this is where I belong.
Yeah. If you've just joined us, we are talking to Father James Zimmer about his call to the priesthood and just his experiences as a priest now. So, did you have some fear or hesitation, especially when you were in seminary? How did that go for you?
That was up and down also. And fear, I think I've had more fears than I would let myself admit, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
And the fears of, can I do this? Can I handle it? And then the fear, am I doing the right thing? Or is this what I should do?
Sure.
And so let's see how to answer that. I always wanted someone else to make the decision for me.
Oh, like everybody else. Someone else, please help me.
I remember thinking at one point, I believe this was the end of my junior year in college, seminary. We went in to visit with the rector, the head of the seminary, and I remember standing outside his office thinking, I hope he's going to say, well, we see you as a really good person, but we can see that the priesthood is not your vocation.
You were hoping someone would give you a way out.
That he would say that, and then I'd say, oh, okay, good.
He didn't say that.
He did not say that.
Because here you are.
Yes. And I remember being almost disappointed, and at the same time knowing, oh no, I really can't expect that
someone else to
he's
make
going
that
to
decision.
say that.
Yeah.
Although that can happen.
Yes, certainly.
I mean, it can and does happen where others will see more quickly than you their vocation.
Right. Well, I'm glad he didn't say that because I think you've been a pretty good priest over the years, I think.
Well, I hope.
I haven't.
I hope. I have hopes. I was just thinking this is maybe off the track just a bit, but maybe not so much. I did take a year's time as a priest. Bishop Carlson gave me permission to look at monastic life.
Right.
And this was, I took the year from July of 97 to July of 98. And I'm really grateful to Bishop Carlson for allowing me to do that. And I'd been building up for some time, thinking of this for years. And one of the places where I went during that year was a group of Carmelite hermits in Colorado.
Okay.
And what I said about that others can see it quicker than you do is that it just did not fit me.
Right.
And they saw it much clearer than I did. And like one of the ways they saw it, I got sick while I was there. But there were other ways too that, and when they sat down with me and said this, it made perfect sense.
Right.
I said, "Oh, what you see is absolutely right."
Right.
And I didn't necessarily like it, but I knew that it was the truth.
Sure.
That it was really true. That isn't where I fit.
Right.
So-
And it was really good for you to get that year then, because it kind of
Yes.
gave you a chance to settle your heart about where you were, or where you
Exactly.
should be. Yeah.
Exactly. It did. And, well, I'll go back to the other place where I went. I really fit better. It was the Trappists. So the Cistercians in Mepkin Abbey in South Carolina.
Okay.
And I really, in many ways, loved the life there. And I fit in well. And yet I came to see that it wasn't enough. The way I said it was, my desire for this life isn't enough to sustain me.
Oh, okay.
And the things I missed about diocesan or parish priesthood were preaching and hearing confessions.
Oh, sure.
I remember saying, I really miss that. I don't know that I can live without that.
Sure. That's interesting.
So, yeah.
So, okay. So you have been, when were you, I'll let you take that drink. When were you ordained? Because it's been a lot of years.
In 1976, so
Okay.
June 3rd, 1976.
I was about 4.
How about that?
I just gave away my age. Oh,
Yes.
what was I thinking?
Yeah, we'll be celebrating that Jubilee here pretty
Yes.
soon.
So what has been the biggest challenge for you in your priesthood over the years? Do you think?
I think, that's a really good question. Probably the biggest challenge is to, I think, I'm thinking of this in the terms of what a priest whom I really follow and admire, Father Giussani, the founder of the Catholic movement, Communion and Liberation.
Oh, yeah.
And when they asked him, they used, I'm going into a long story. T.S. Eliot, the poet, had written, "Has humanity failed the church, or has the church failed humanity?" And he answered, both.
Sure.
Was his, and when they asked him that. And I don't exactly remember what he said about humanity has failed the church, but he said the church has failed humanity when we've been ashamed of Christ.
Okay.
And I would say that's been the challenge for me, is
Sure.
not to be ashamed of the human weakness of Christ
Sure.
and of his maybe his failure, and or in me the failure, or his smallness, or his way of not being what everybody thinks he should
Sure.
be, but being what God wants him to be.
Right.
And I think that's the challenge, is to stay with Christ
Right.
as he shows himself.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the biggest blessing, I think? Is it confessions?
well, it's,
because you just said you
it's-
couldn't live without that part. But
Yes, for sure. I suppose the biggest blessing is when I've been able to stay with Christ as he shows himself
Sure.
to me,
Yeah.
like in the confessional and in the hospital. Yeah, that's the blessing. See,
Good.
Really, yeah.
Good. Okay. So we only have about a minute left, and I want to make sure we get 2 things in. So the first one I want to know is, if a young man came to you, or even a not so young man, and said that they were thinking about becoming a priest, what advice would you give them?
I don't know if there'd be just one certain advice to give, but it would be obviously to ask God about it. But I think to bring that question to the church. I mean, like that. Well, like I guess
Vocations
I
director?
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
vocations director, pastor, to test it out.
Sure.
That's probably the thing. Test it out.
Yeah.
Put it to the test.
Yeah. That's great advice.
And that's, yeah,
And many priests always say, of course, pray about it, because, like you said, ask God about it.
for sure.
We have to.
And of course, the way he answers is in real life. And so that's what
Right.
putting in the test is about.
Yes, exactly. So then the other thing I want to know is, even as a retired priest, so you're not responsible for a parish anymore, but you still do many things in parish and so on as a sub. So what can the people of the diocese do for you?
That's a good, of course, pray. People do pray. I think they do so much just by being themselves,
Okay.
by really following their vocation.
That's perfect thing for us to do. If we can follow our vocations to the best we can, what a testament to the priests who have taught us over the years, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so again, that 20 minutes went super fast, as it always does.
So here we are.
I know you have a much bigger story. So I hope maybe sometime we'll have to have you back in and learn a little bit more about your story. Do you sub in certain parishes more often than others, where people might be able to see you?
Not necessarily, although mostly it's been in Sioux Falls.
Okay.
I mean, I suppose this isn't the right public service announcement, but actually I've been sort of surprised that I haven't been asked more than I have.
Oh,
And
well, come on,
and so
guys. Father
been-
Zimmer's just waiting.
Yeah, I'm thinking I need to send a little thing out saying, here I am.
Remind everybody you're still out there.
So I've been asked more in the Sioux Falls area.
Sure.
Than anywhere else, which
good.
makes sense.
Yes, it does, because you're close by.
Right.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you again, Father, for coming in and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it, and we will pray for you.
Thank you.
Right, you bet.
For you.
All right. You can always find us at sfcatholic.org anytime. You can find our videos, links to all of our podcasts, and, of course, information about the diocese that you might be looking for. That is it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.